Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about buying out of a position. I consider this to be an intermediate sports betting strategy, and it's one you only want to take when you want to minimize your risk because you're guaranteeing yourself a small loss. So you only want to do this when you're looking at a potential big loss. And we're going to talk about a couple of examples and give you the technique to do this and figure out what your options are when you're faced with a bet that looks like it's going to be a loser before the game even starts. And this gives you an option of what to do. We're also going to talk about Friday night NHL. We've got XFL Week 3, and we've also got the Pennzoil 400 in Las Vegas, the NASCAR second week race, and it's going to be a lot different from the Daytona 500, which happened to turn out okay for me. And let's go ahead and take a look at my bankroll and see how we did last week. Of course, 2 weeks ago we missed because of the snowstorm. So last week, our starting bankroll, or going into this week, our starting bankroll was 442. On Friday, we had the New York Rangers money line at plus 133. Was a winner for us, so that was plus $20 to the bankroll. And then we had the Tampa Bay Vipers over, which was a loss, minus $15. The Vipers have had the worst quarterback play in the XFL, and they were considered to be one of the favorites to win the championship, but it's looking like they're a long way from that right now. Seattle Battlehawks, who I also like, they were very underrated the first 2 weeks, covered. They ended up losing by 4. I said it was going to be a 5-point game. And the 7.5 covered, so that's $15 to the bankroll. And then we had 2 picks for the Daytona 500. We put a half unit on each. So Denny Hamlin was 10-1. So the profit there is plus $75 to the bankroll. He was the winner by a very close margin over Ryan Blaney. And Eric Jones, Hamlin's teammate, was a loser at 30-1, but so that was minus $8 to the bankroll. So if you do the math there, I believe that's $87 to the good for the week, and that increased our bankroll to $529. Nice little pop there, and the bet size is raised up to $18. We divide by 30 if you don't follow every week. So we take our available bankroll, divide by 30, and that's our bet size because we are choosing to be selective sports bettors. So let us move along and get into our sportsbook lesson. And I lost one of my slides setting up the show today. So I'm going to have to do the Yankees-Red Sox example by hand here. I have 2 examples, one baseball and one football, about being stuck in a bad bet. And this is a very common example. You bet on a game. So we've got the Yankees and the Red Sox, and it's a close. The game is lined evenly, minus 110, minus 110. So you think the Yankees are the better side here. So you take the Yankees you lay $110 to win $100. And suddenly you find out that Giancarlo Stanton, who's tearing up the league, and he's on pace to hit 80 home runs, is out for the game for whatever reason. So you now feel like this Yankees bet is going to be a big loser because without him, they are more likely to lose than the Red Sox. So you're faced at losing $110. So what do we do there? Well, we'll find out in a second. Let's go to our football example. We have the Kansas City Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers. Chiefs are minus 8, 49ers plus 8, both at minus 110. So similar odds. You bet the 49ers thinking they can cover the spread, and suddenly Jimmy G is out after a freak accident. Now that cover looks doubtful. We weren't sure if Jimmy G could win the game, but you're like, hey, with him at quarterback, he's going to keep them within 7 points. So I like that. Now all of a sudden he's out. What do you do? How do you just let it ride? and hope they stay within 8. That's a choice you can make, or you can buy out of the wager and take a very small loss. And we're going to do both of these examples, and I'm handwriting the Red Sox one because I lost that slide. So here we go. So now we have the Red Sox. I'm going to hold this up on the screen here. After the news of Giancarlo Stanton being out, the Red Sox are now minus 115. And therefore, you'd have to bet 115 to win $100. So if you choose to buy out of the Yankees bet, you've made a $110 bet to win $100 on the Yankees. If you turn around and bet 115 on the Red Sox to win $100, well, one of those two teams is going to win the game. So you'll either lose $10 if the Yankees lose, you lose $10. If the Red Sox lose, you lose $15. But instead of risking losing 110 on letting that Yankees bet ride, you can choose to bet either bet the other side of the game, cancel out your two wagers, and pay the juice. So, of course, the miracle outcome there is the game is rained out and both your bets are washed away and you don't win or lose anything. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. We're going to do another example with the slide I already have put up here. Buying out when bets go bad. So we talked about the Red Sox-Yankees example. Now we're going to do the Chiefs and the 49ers example. So you've already bet the 49ers plus 8, $110 to win $100. With Jimmy G out, the line goes to 49ers plus 9.5. It was 49ers plus 8. So you act quickly on the news, and you bet on the Chiefs minus 8 at minus 125. Now, remember, with the NFL, you can buy alternate lines. So if the standard line was 9.5, you can look at the Sportsbook and say, how much is it for minus 8? And we're saying in this example, it's minus 125. So if you place that bet on the Chiefs to win $100, so you're laying $125 to win $100, the likely result will be a net loss of $10 or a net loss of $25, depending who wins. So you're playing this for a small loss, and that seems very counterintuitive because you're trying to win money. We're talking about having a profit motive. But if you've sunk money into a bet that you think is a sure loser, you can buy out of it if you want. And this is how you do that. Now, of course, the best case result in this situation is that the outcome falls exactly on 8 points and both bets push and you don't win anything or you don't lose anything. But if you were going to buy out, this is how you would do it. And I'm showing this to people. Again, this is an intermediate result. If you're betting on a big college basketball game in March Madness and all of a sudden one of the star players is out and you want to get out of the wager, this is how you do it. In the very bottom here, the end of this lesson is really, it's up to you to decide when it's worth it to buy out of a wager. There are times when I would let the bet ride. If I had, the 49ers plus 8 against the Chiefs and Kittle was out or their fullback is actually a very valuable piece. If they have a backup fullback that can complete that job, Juszczyk, I believe his name is, I'm actually pretty confident in the 49ers backup quarterbacks. That's not as big of a loss to me, depending on what the spread is, of course, in this situation. But it's up to you to decide, is it worth blocking in a small loss as opposed to letting that bet, ride out on its own? Remember, you being a selective sports bettor, and every once in a while, things pop up that make a good bet a bad bet, even before the game has started. So I just want to introduce this concept of buying out. I've talked about it a few times on the show, and I'm sure some of you probably don't know what it meant. But this is an opportunity for you to manage your bankroll on the fly. There are times when you've put money into a bad bet and you want to get out of it. And there are certain, things you can do along the way and, any given weekend or any given season or any given night that can make you, I bet a lot of hockey, and I feel like hockey has the least impact on certain players missing a game because even the superstars will only play 20, maybe 25 minutes a game out of a possible 300 player minutes in a game. So it's a very small, it's less than 10% of the total minutes played on the ice, not including the goalies. So, but in a basketball game, if you have a player like LeBron, who is playing 40 out of 48 minutes a night, he's playing almost 20% of his team's minutes, and a player like that missing a game is very important to the outcome. So you have to decide whether a bet is worth buying out of or not. To each their own. I thought I would bring it up and add it to our arsenal as we move along. So hope everybody found that interesting. And let's move on to the weekend in sports and sports betting, what we got going on. And I'm going to start with hockey, and we've got actually a pretty decent schedule today on Friday. Red Wings plus 244 at the Islanders minus 282. 5.5 is the total. Of course, the Red Wings are in the tank this year. I believe they've only won 2 regulation games against the Eastern Conference, which is insane. They have very old and poor goaltending. I feel bad because Jonathan Bernier's had a pretty good year considering what he's working with. There's really no value in betting either side in this game. I think the total might be over here. It depends how much effort the Red Wings put up. It's all about how much the Red Wings can score. Rangers at Hurricanes. 6 is the total here. The Hurricanes have not had great goaltending since the first of the year. This would usually be a 5.5, but it's a 6 because they've been giving up a lot of goals, and they're going to have to add some beef in the back end or a really good goaltender if they want to compete in the playoffs. The Rangers are fighting for a playoff spot. That's a pretty decent number on the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin got a stick in the eye last night. I hope he's okay. Right through his bird cage. I know he won't play tonight because he played last night, but or Wednesday night. But if he is out for an extended period of time, that would not be good for the Rangers. Predators at the Blackhawks. I actually like the Predators here. Blackhawks were fighting 1-1 in the second period Wednesday night against the Rangers, and they ended up losing 6-3. Boy, what a meltdown. Lehner, I think they got under his skin, and he had one of his Psycho Robin moments yesterday. I don't know if this will go over. These teams can score, and they can give up goals. But the Predators have just been playing better hockey than the Blackhawks. Blackhawks, I think, are a year away from contending again, and you just hope that Taves and Kane don't start to slow down by the time they come around again. They're really a few players away. The Blues at the Stars. The Blues finally won a game after a big skid, and they're playing a very good Stars team on the road. But getting, when you get the top 3 or 4 teams in the league, Pittsburgh, Washington, Tampa Bay, St. Louis, those are probably the top 4 teams in my opinion. When you can get those teams at plus money, you really want to consider taking them. I think that the Dallas has the goaltending edge here, but the Blues just picked up a defenseman in a trade, so that may help. I like the Blues at that number. The Bruins at the Flames, plus 121, 5.5 is the total. I like the over here. The Bruins are obviously, they're one of the best teams as well in the league. The East is so much stronger than the West in the NHL this year. There are teams leading the Central Division that would be in 7th place in the Eastern playoff race, or in the Eastern Metropolitan Division, or something like crazy like that. The East has just been putting up much better numbers this year. I like the Bruins here. That's not a bad price for taking them. They are on an extended road trip, though, so Usually they end up taking a night off somewhere when they're on a West Coast road trip like that. All the teams do. They either decide they're going to go out and party somewhere, or they just run out of gas from being on the road so long. And then you've got the Wild at the Oilers. The Wild have been playing great hockey for the last 2 weeks. They have not missed a beat, even after trading Jason Zucker to the Penguins. The Oilers are on top or near the top of the Western Conference. They're right there with competing with the Stars and a couple other teams. I like the over here. I like the Oilers. Oilers just keep finding ways to win. They don't have great goaltending. They have very good offense. They don't have a great defense. They just keep finding ways to win. And the Wild goaltending has been way above expectation the last month. It's kind of got to come back down sometime. I like the over here. I also like the Oilers. And then the Avalanche at the Ducks. 6 is the total. The Ducks have not really put up a lot of offense lately. It's definitely a rebuilding year for them. That's not really a bad number for the Avalanche. And the Avalanche need points. They've blown a lot of leads. But this game, I feel like after their last couple of efforts, they're ready to break out. The Avalanche are almost fully healthy now. So I like them in this spot. So we'll see where my picks end up. But let's move from hockey to XFL. And, of course, we got 4 games every week. There's only 8 teams in the league. And I went 1-1 last week. And we have the Roughnecks at the Vipers. Vipers at home getting 6.5. 45.5 is the total. And the Vipers have not been able to score points. They've been able to move the ball, but they haven't been able to put it in the end zone. And they've had the worst quarterback play in the league in net yards per attempt. They've started 2 different quarterbacks, both with horrible results. They got in the red zone 3 times last week, and they got 3 field goals. So I don't really see that changing if they keep trying to run the same plays over and over again. So I do like the Roughnecks minus 6.5 here. They have been able to score points, but they've also given up some points. But it just seems like this is the worst offense in the league, and LA is probably the worst defense in the league. So I don't know about that total because I feel like the Roughnecks are going to score about 24 points in this game. But I don't think the Vipers are going to score 21. So I like the 6.5 there. Dallas Renegades at the Seattle Dragons plus 4, 43. I like any total that's 43 or lower. The Dragons, again, are one of those, I don't want to call it a West Coast offense. It's short passes, usually over the middle, and a lot of runs, a lot of sweeps and counters. Jim Zorn has been an old-school coach here on offense. They do have somewhat of a home field advantage. That place, even with it's only half full, it gets pretty loud. Seattle does a really good job of supporting its teams, I have to say, so I'm looking forward to them getting a hockey team in 2021. Dallas is another team that is good at scoring points, but also giving up points. So I do kind of like this over. I really, the game seems lined appropriately. I feel like this is going to be a close game, so I'm going to stay away from it. It could go either way. Guardians at the Battlehawks. The Battlehawks are no longer a secret after being over a touchdown underdog the last 2 weeks and going 1-1. The Battlehawks get their first home game, and they are now minus 10 favorite with the best quarterback in the league in net yards per attempt. And then the Guardians got shut out 27-0 last week after winning in week 1. Matt McGloin had a public spat with his coach on the halftime interview. And I hate to say it, but McGloin was right. The coach drew up a shitty game, excuse my language, a lousy game plan for that game. And they deserve to lose that game 27-0. So if the coaches make the adjustments to the play calling, they will be competitive in this game. Battlehawks have given up points both weeks. They gave up over 20 points to the 2 teams they've played. So I don't think the Guardians are going to get shut out here. I think 40.5 over is a must play in this game. So that's what I like the best. And then finally, the Defenders at the Wildcats. Wildcats plus 844. The DC team is a very well-coached, well-disciplined team. They will win this game. Will they win by 8? I don't know. Don't really like these numbers. I think you would lean towards the over with as bad as the Wildcats' defense has been. But I would stay away from this. I think the other bet is a better bet. I'll have my my XFL picks coming up here at the end of the show. But first we got to talk about NASCAR. And I got to tell you, not to brag, but there have been 4 NASCAR races so far this year. They were all at Daytona. There was the Busch Clash, the 2 duels, and the Daytona 500. And I have been right on 3 of my 4 picks for these races. And now you have to understand that I usually spend about a unit or so, and I break it up into sections. Like last week, I had a half a unit on Hamlin and a half a unit on Eric Jones. But, you know, the favorite in the Daytona 500 was 10-1. Odds are pretty juicy. So we're moving from Daytona, which is a super speedway, to Pennzoil 400 in Las Vegas, which is a 1.5 tri-oval, if you will, I guess. 1.5 mile track. Of course, there's no restrictor plates on the cars this week. So true horsepower. Some cars are just going to be flat out faster than other cars. Drafting will be much less, if not a factor at all. There is something called a side draft that you can do when you're trying to pass, but there will not be teams of cars drafting to catch up to other cars. The sheer horsepower of some of these engines is just going to be too much for some of the other cars. What's going to make a difference is tires and fuel mileage and catching the cautions at a right time. So you want to have fresh tires at the right time so you don't blow a tire. You want to make sure that you're getting good fuel mileage, which means you'd have to make less stops. And, of course, you don't want to get caught making a green flag pit stop when everybody else got to make one under the yellow, which is going to put you a lap down. So all those factors come into play, and that's kind of the luck of the NASCAR, any typical NASCAR race. You have to, those things have to fall into line for you to win the race. That being said, they've been racing in Las Vegas for almost 20 years, and I don't think anybody's won outside of starting behind the 25th position. So you could pretty much write out those guys that start in the back of the field. Of course, there hasn't been practice or qualifying yet, so we're talking about this Friday morning before any of that. And there are odds out for the race. I don't have them all listed here. But the favorites are drivers and teams that have done well. I will point out that Kyle Busch and Kurt Busch are from Las Vegas. This is their home track. But I would argue that Kevin Harvick is the best driver on this track. He's dominated some races recently, and he is one of the co-favorites for this race. So the Gibbs cars, the Tony Stewart racing cars, Hendrick cars expected to contend, as well as the Penske cars. So I feel like the Gibbs and Stewart cars have the leg up on the other ones. We'll see how the Stewarts are Fords, the Penskes are Fords, and the Gibbs are Toyotas. So the Chevys have a new body style. They're using the Camaro, and what happens when they bring a new body style in, the NASCAR usually lets them make adjustments to it at some point during the season. So it might be several races before the Chevy cars are ultra competitive, or they may be, we don't really know because there hasn't been a non-restrictor plate race yet, if I said that correctly. So let's move on to my picks. And I've got Friday night. I've got the Wild and the Oilers over 5.5 at plus 105. Oilers have great offense. The Wild have been scoring goals too. I also decided, to take the Avs minus 1.5 goals against Anaheim. at plus 161. We'll see how that works out for me. And then in the XFL, we've got the Guardians and the Battlehawks over 40.5, minus 115. I feel like that should be an easy over, and that's a weatherproof game, by the way. They're playing a dome. So, and then Saturday, that one's on Sunday. Saturday, we have Houston at minus 6.5 at Tampa Bay. Until Tampa Bay shows me something, I'm going to bet against them as long as the line's not too big. So I have confidence in Houston scoring a few extra points and winning by 7. And then what I'm doing in the Las Vegas race, I'm taking 2 heavy favorites, and then I'm going to take 2 long shots. So I'm putting a half a unit on the 2 favorites and a quarter of a unit on the 2 long shots. Please mark that down, because when I do my bankroll update next week, I don't want everybody to be confused. But Kevin Harvick is the favorite at plus 450. Martin Truex, who's also had success here, plus 500. Then Kurt Busch, who has actually done pretty well, has had a top 5 here, 25-1. And Eric Almirola, I've seen odds on him as high as 80, 90-1. He has 3 top 10 finishes in his last 4 Las Vegas races. If you could get him at 80-1, that's a long shot. You really can't. I mean, I'd throw $10 on it, you know. So I'm going to have a quarter unit on Almirola at 40-1. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you found my lesson helpful. I don't recommend buying out unless you feel like your bet is total lost cause. But it's up for you to decide. It's a strategy you can use. So we've got an interesting week. We got hockey, we got football, we got auto racing. Next week, maybe we'll do a book review or a Aussie rules or something, another lesson. Hope to see you then. I'm going to play the outro music for you. Thank you very much again for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Take care.